Hello, everybody. So welcome back to week 3. 8-week courses do move pretty quickly. Uh, we're over a quarter of the way done now. A few big things this week. Add this to my list, and we'll talk about that first. So a few things to go over this week. It's about visual elements this week. The design bugs. So we started into this last week because there's a lot of things to talk about with colors. We did our basic intro to CSS using colors. I was wanting to do sizing the other day, but we're in out of time. So we'll look at fonts and sizes today. Wednesday, we will be talking about design concepts. The stuff the visual artists spend a lot of time dwelling over. Contrast and proximity and all those concepts that make things look good or draw people's attention to a certain spot on the page. This isn't a VisCom class, so we're just going to introduce those concepts. But obviously, if you're interested in those things, Lily's here all the keywords on Wednesday to dig a little deeper with that. Today is all we're going to be making. I guess just a random page again. We'll probably fit it all in a bunch of stuff on one page with examples of fonts and colors and sizes and the tools we have to work with before we get to the design element, the design principles on Wednesday. The other big thing this week, or probably the bigger thing this week, is the project proposals are due. Let's talk about that. Let me go ahead and share my screen. And I guess I could have pulled this up earlier, but probably should have already signed in here. I knew I was going to do this, but it's been a busy morning. Did everybody have a good weekend? Anybody have anything exciting to talk about from the weekend while web pages open up?
Same old me.
I guess no news means a good weekend. People had time to relax or something. Oh, there we go. So we go to modules and module 3. Probably the big one this week because that's the big one for our course, right? We're building up to making a big, huge website on our own instead of following those instructions. So we want a topic for it, and this little state. I need to go in the same order. Remember that thing I talked about with making a plan? Right? If it fits in the time constraints of the classroom, even an 8-week, right? What is this, week 3? So we have 6 weeks. We count the day making the proposal and stuff. We have 6 weeks to work on it. But it's still a fairly short timeline. Probably do it without a plan. But those points from the other day, the converse of that is true, or contrapositive of that is true. If it fits in the time, if it fits in our time constraints in the classroom, then it's easy to make a plan for. So while the budget is trivial, make up some numbers for that. Obviously, no money is going to be exchanged for homework in the class, but it will certainly benefit you in the long run to get some practice at that, right? Take a guess the first couple times, and then after you see how far off you are, because your budget's probably going to be based off the amount of time you think it's going to take. You can start refining that guess and get better and better at that. That's very important. There's some notes here. I just kind of copied this, want some sort of description. These are from the statewide shell. I just kind of left those in there as a visual description. What I'm mostly looking for is getting into industry standards. How we would propose a website to a client. And in that situation, if I was actually proposing a website I was going to make for a client, I would probably do it all from scratch. Not a huge fan of templates personally. But as far as in the classroom, templates are great. because that document tells you what to write and where to write it at. So that's what I was wanting for the project proposal. Just go Google free project proposal templates. Make sure you put the word free in there. You don't need to go buy anything for the class. If anything we do in class ever shows up and they want to charge you for it, let me know, and I will remove that immediately. That happened a couple years ago last year in an Ivy Online class. The SDEV 220 class, one of the assignments that Ivy Online had required people to enter their credit card. And I was like, no, there's not a charge for your homework. So I replaced that as quick as I could. But if anything, because companies like that make these templates change things occasionally. So if there's ever anything we do in class, the homework shouldn't cost you anything. Here's the one I was looking for. I've been clicking on this one for a couple years now. Smartsheet. They have 17 free project proposal templates. Just do a quick search. Canva has passed this. I've been clicking on this for a couple years. It used to be the higher result. Canva can make much nicer looking things, but there's a big learning curve with Canva. So if you don't already know how to use Canva, maybe start clicking around, because it does make really, really, really nice looking. It does make really, really nice looking things, but there's a kind of a lengthy learning curve that I don't want to require of you, but a good one to look into. If you know how to use Canva, they have some great templates on there. But just search for some free project proposal templates. Scroll through here, find one you like. Really, it's going to come down to choose one with the colors you like, different patterns, and kind of fill out the template. I'll just go with this first one here. I'll open it in Google Docs. And I don't want the software, I just want that template, which will open up here. And if it's a Google Docs template on most of them, this is nice, it has instructions right here. The one they give you is not editable, so you have to go in and make a copy. So under File, make a copy. Sure, that's probably a good name for it. Get rid of that. And then just kind of fill out this template, right? You don't know how to do that part, get rid of the picture. Last project. Summary, right? Making a web page, obviously put more in there than that, fill all these things out. But I'm just asking that you really pay close attention to the schedule and the budget, because like I said last week, the week before, whenever we talked about it, when you get out in the real world, you're going to have this big, huge, fancy proposal, but these are the only two lines the client care about, right? And obviously ours is trivial. It's due by March 10th. Is that right? Look at the calendar. March 10th is, yes. So for us, it's March 10th, but break it down better than that. So when's the due date for this month? Well, the 5th, I think. So February 5th, formal proposal. Couple weeks after that, February 19th, plus a couple days because there's a holiday in there. So about like February 25th, then have basic navigation and logos on the page.
Budget section says the schedule section.
Thank you. Yeah, so break it down like that. Then by like March 1st, have the content, and then by March 10th, have animations and media. Actually, a couple days. It's due on the 10th. So maybe by the 8th, animations, media, all the interesting points, right? And then March 10th is deliver the website. It only takes a couple seconds to jot down a rough idea. It doesn't have, I'm not going to hold you to that schedule here, but for your own benefit, breaking it down, and then next time you do one, try to get a more educated guess. If this is the first time you've done it, it's going to be completely a guess. Right? You know when the deliverable is due. So just kind of break up the time between now and then. Look back at afterwards and decide where adjustments should have been made beforehand, and start working on that better and better educated guess part, because in the real world, those are only 2 lines people care about. Obviously, you have to do the full proposal, and then you can break it down for that, right? So like budget. No money is actually going to be exchange hands for homework assignments. And if there's ever a fee show up on software we're using for homework, please let me know immediately. Do not do that homework, let me know, and I will change it to something else that does not have a fee, because it's homework. $75 per hour times an expected, I don't know, 32 hours, and then whatever. Let's charge $100 an hour. And with this one, I will give you a hint. Web developers charge what we would probably most of us refer to as lawyer hours. Because part of it, a big part of it is that time we spend sitting in the chair, staring off into space, thinking about things. We don't necessarily charge those for the client, right? So lawyers are the best known example of it. The lawyer says $300 an hour, and that's for that 1 hour that the lawyer is sitting in the room with the client, and doesn't include the 16 hours that the lawyer spent digging through law books and previous court decisions and things, looking for what they need to tell their clients. So it averages out. Web designers do the same thing, web developers. So the hourly rate seems kind of high, but that's for the hour you're sitting there with the client, and it doesn't include a lot of the other stuff. But spend the most time on those. Just do a Google search for a free project proposal template and fill that out, and tell me what you're going to make for it. The industry standard, I left the instructions from the item line, stay with the shell here. They have these little templates. If you want to do one of the diagrams like that, it does have to be some sort of outline, but if you want to skip the outline part and do something more along the lines of the industry standards, draw.io or whatever the new address is. It's not new anymore. It's been that new address for like 7 years, but I still remember the old one, because it's just a lot easier to remember the old one. The industry standard would be a wireframe diagram, which should be out here somewhere. I actually just search for, we don't have a search to do. Oh, there it is. Search for wireframe, and you can maybe start with the template there and see what a wireframe looks like, because that's user filter is going to be deleted in a moment anyway. See what a wireframe looks like. So this would be the industry standard sort of picture that we use on those. See how it's just a rough sketch. Things aren't necessarily finished. This is probably more than is necessary, but it shows where the navigation bar is going to be, where the main picture is going to be, different spaces around. You can start with one of those templates and just kind of give a basic idea of what your thing's going to look like. Add some color if you want to, but just the basic idea. That would be more industry standard than what the instructor is, if you want to include one of those. Oh, sorry, did you ask a question, Andrea?
No.
Okay. I thought I heard somebody talking and it looked like there was the green box around your
I was unmuted. I didn't realize it. Sorry.
oh, okay.
The fact that it uses lorem ipsum Not wireframe template.
Yeah, so that's where Laura Mipsum would go. We talked about that the other day. It was a Latin text dealing with a loved one with depression, which the Romans did very, very differently than we do. But to make something that looked real, he just scrambled around the words. So lorem is from delorem, and ipsum is a Latin word. So it's not really a language anymore, but it looks like a language. It has long words and short words, the right number of vowels. He just mixed it up so it's gibberish to see what it looks like. That would be much more industry standard than one of these outlines, but we are pressed for time. This isn't the only assignment this week, so if throwing one of these outlines together, the hierarchy diagram of your website, or some sort of hierarchy diagram or chart, that definitely fits in our time constraints a little bit better. That's the big one for this week.
And this is for the website. 3 different things that you talk about.
The final project?
Yeah.
Should be one thing. You'll see the requirements in there. It has to be a certain number of pages. But yeah, some sort of informational website. Since you asked, Grady, video game review sites are one that I've seen pretty regularly over the years. Or movies, music, review sites like that. If you're a creative person, somebody sitting in the classroom I know is maybe a place to host all your music, right? A website that's not YouTube or not normal social media. Your normal social media links to the thing to your own website, and you've probably seen other people have those, but that sort of thing. A topic that you're interested in. One I've seen more than once is just a historical information about the Titanic, because apparently a lot of people are interested in that. And when I've seen people do that, there's also like they refer to like dozens and dozens and dozens of websites online dedicated to the Titanic. So a lot of people are interested in that, but some informational thing. And you'll see those requirements around the pages and stuff. But for the project proposal here, just tell me what you want to make. And generally in the SDEV classes, if the proposal, like if I have to reject a proposal, it is pretty much always because it's too big. It's like there's no possible way you're going to do that in 8 weeks. So let's back it off. Let's take out some features. So I started adjunct in 2018. This course I've taught many times since then. But started adjunct in 2018 and been full-time a few years, a couple years after that. So I've taught a lot of courses, but I don't remember ever rejecting somebody's proposal because it was too small of a thing. It's always like people start letting the ideas flow, and it's like, oh, there's no way that can fit in the classroom. That's a really big thing. So, but let me know what you want to make for the website, for your own website, and that one will probably be a lot more fun than following step-by-step instructions in the book to completely your design. Portfolios are also another nice one. Software development, the industry standard is to go with portfolio, not full out CV, but curriculum vitae. That's a resume that basically includes like everything you've ever done. Teachers do CVs instead of resumes. So like if you made a diorama in 3rd grade, you put that in your CV because you know how to show somebody how to make a diorama, a little miniature scene and stuff. Those include everything, but portfolio, a sampling of your best work is standard for software development. So you could start your own portfolio site. That's a great project for this class too. And then as you progress through your education and keep adding your best work to it, and then your portfolio is pretty much done when you're ready to go out job hunting. A few ideas. If you're having trouble coming up with ideas, let me know. We'll go through sit down and go through a long list of things that different ideas I've seen over the years, or things that I think would be good that I haven't actually seen yet. Okay, so now on to the HTML stuff. I guess the plan thing. since I made that just go quicker than we did the other day when we were talking about it, right? So emphasize how quickly it can be done. Web page to, that doesn't look like any, there we go. To demo visual aspects. I.e. colors and sizes. Colors, sizes, and accent, I guess. That's a good word for it. Borders and shadows and things like that. Little accents that we can add in. Timeline. What do we have? 120. I want to try to wrap up about 3 o'clock today, so that's an hour and a half after we take the break out of it. So 1.5 hours. Budget. Let's say 75 per hour. Let's make 80 per hour times the 1.5 hours will give us 120 on that budget. It just takes a couple seconds, and if you get some practice and get good at those numbers right there on your way through school, it will make a huge difference in your working career. Then a wireframe. Let's see, we'll have, I don't know, some sort of header on the page, some words. Oh, we haven't got to the layouts yet, so our words will just go all the way across, and then we'll start columns and things like that or next week. Some put some borders around some of it. Just a basic idea. We need some images. It's like some big images and some small images and few random things like that. It doesn't take long at all to put a plan together, and it will be well worth your time in the long run, even though there's no grading on that point. Then afterwards, come back and check how far off you are on those 2 lines. And a very important one. But for us, and what's going to usually happen with practicing things like that, we're just going to jump in and start writing some code. So I'm going to go ahead and save this file so we get all the lexing, predictive text, and color coding, all of that. What is this? This is week 3 example. I'll call it week 3. Oops, that's not what I meant to make. Let me close that. Let me try that again. Save that and make a folder called week 3. Oh, delete that. Make a folder called week 3. And I did not put any spaces in there. That would be important, but we haven't really talked about addresses and stuff now. In case you haven't ever encountered it before, putting a space in a web address can be a bit problematic. Anybody ever had to do that? Have you ever had to type a space in a web address? Type %, 20%. You may have seen that printed on some before, but it's a little odd. We don't want our typical users to have to type special characters into a URL or web address. So I guess this will just be index.html. And I'm just going to start typing HTML and hit tab to get all that predictive text to pull up. I'll give it a title of visual elements and fix some indenting levels and add some white space into this template, which no matter what text editor or IDE you're using, you should be able to edit the templates as well. since it won't pass, won't currently pass validation, I'll say that this website's available in English. We put that in the opening HTML tag as a list. So if we wanted to do a few language, right, it's available in English, Italian, German, can't remember the abbreviation from China, I think CA, I'll just put that. If we had several different languages, then whatever, right, everybody has their browser set to the language they speak. It's gonna read from that line and open the version that it should, or at least give a notification that the website's not available in that language, so it's using the Google Translate or one of the automated services that might not be ideal. Yes.
So if you wanted to add another language, would you have to like rewrite everything in that language?
No, so I put it in there as a list, so yes, actually, yes. So we would make a copy of this. Let me go ahead and save this. We'd have this English one, and then make a new file, copy everything over, and I don't know, I don't speak very many languages, so I'll just do the hello world. And over here, copy everything over to this new one and change it to German, and it's still hello. One day. Change the world, or Spanish, I know that one too. That one actually changes. Hola. Nope, I don't know the word for, what's the Spanish word for girl? Does anybody know? Go back to German. I'll go with German. But yes, we would make several index pages, and this is still index.html. I was going to do that. The Deutsch language is what they call it in this house, so that's why it's DE. But yeah, and then we would load both index pages up, and all of our pages in multiple languages, and then the server and browser would be able to determine which one they wanted. But the auto translators are getting better all the time, so it probably won't be too long until it just opens in the language you want to do, as those get better and better, and AI starts to get better for those. I think most of the AI I worked over last year, the big ones, were in speaking a particular language, and they haven't really combined that with translators much yet. They at least haven't got big like the AIs that are doing good jobs lately. So we need some random stuff to start styling up. I'm gonna put some random words on here. H1.
I would say that the translators are definitely getting to be more popular, because recently there's been some controversy with like with anime and people and localizations and people changing things. So and there's been a lot of that, and people are now swapping over to using AI to translate instead of actual people.
Yeah, they're very, very useful. The laundromat I go to, the lady that's usually working in there, she doesn't speak in English. She just walks around with her phone and just translates right there on her phone. And they're getting better all the time. Actually, you might have noticed that I had to add that back in to talk about it. So the template has already removed it. Somebody using VS Code, did VS Code put that language attribute in there?
I don't really know how to trigger a template in VS Code, so.
It's even easier. It's like a hotkey. HTML template in VS Code. I should look this up. Type HTML and press enter. That's not the one I was thinking of. I was thinking it was like Control Shift exclamation mark, like Control Shift 1 or something.
I typed HTML and just made HTML tags. The HTML and the /HTML thing. That's all it did.
Oh, Command Shift 1, Control Shift 1. That is what I was thinking. I should have just said it.
So Control Shift 1.
Probably the top row one. Exactly, exclamation mark.
Doesn't do anything. Yeah, man.
I will have to review that because I don't have VS Code installed here. And that would save a lot of time. Well, let's look it up because I know a bunch of y'all are using that. HTML page template in VS Code. So it does have to be saved with the HTML extension. If you already have the file saved.
Yeah, it's saved already.
Actually, I can go to GitHub, Dev, Hannah. I'll use VS Code here.
There, yeah. So you type in HTML and it pops up a dialog box, and you have to go to HTML5. Brings up something similar to what you had.
Okay, did everybody hear that? Oh, let me see if I can do it on this one. SDEV 220. This one work. There's a random text file.
It's HTML:5, or it'll pop up with HTML and a couple of options. It's
Oops, not that button. Yeah, okay, there we go. Well, apparently they changed the keyboard shortcut. File, new file. Create a new HTML file. And shift 1, that did not work.
HTML:5.
Yeah, so this one, the second one on the list, if you're using VS Code, that'll pull that out. Part of the reason I don't use VS Code is so that I'm using something different than and that way we don't spend too much time learning a particular text editor, and we're actually learning the subject. But yeah, now that we've talked about all those things, and set it up that way, I'll just get some lorem ipsum text. So we talked about this last week, just filler text. And there's been some good ones created. I don't know which one off the top of my head to go to, but generate, so there's a bunch of it. That'll work. And copy and paste. But there's been some updates on it so that sometimes it's not just gibberish. And there's some that'll like work jokes in there and things like that. But it has the properties that make it look like an actual language. So I'll just add some paragraph tags around those. Indent that. Because white space making things readable is kind of nice. Actually, I'm turning word wrap off. The way I would normally do this is have it set like this. So I just indent it, whatever level. put the opening tag and then use the end key to get the closing tag. And then that opening tag, then hit end, so the cursor's right there at the end. If you're not used to using that key, the home and end keys on your keyboard, when you're writing code, those will be very, very useful. And those particular keys are also in a different spot on every single keyboard. So you want to make sure you know where those keys are. All right, we're gonna add some pictures and stuff in there, but that should look like a basic web page now. Maybe it's stuff be out the way there. Go over here and open that up. Great. Our index page. So we've got our content on our data on the page. We need to make it look better visually. Guess we could start with fonts. Fonts are a good option, right? The book has the shorthand on it. I'll quickly do that. I'm gonna come up here and add a link to the style sheet. We saw this last week. So the relevance is it's a style sheet. The MIME type, which is technically optional on CSS, since that is a standard. We're sending Unicode data. Oh no, we're sending Unicode format holding CSS data. And then the hyperlink reference. So where do we find that at? I'll just call this week3.css. And I always like to, if I do the link first, I like to just go ahead and copy it. Because we don't necessarily have to spell it correctly, as long as we spell it the same way in both places. So now I'll save this as with that name I just copied. Most of your examples, I think the textbook is really bad about this. Everything, they always use style.css. If you start naming things style.css, you're going to end up with hundreds and soon thousands of pages called style.css. It makes it a little difficult to keep track of them. So make sure you give those meaningful names. One I didn't talk about last week that I always like to do, we'll look at gradients and kind of see where this fits in. I'm going to grab the HTML tag. So the overarching HTML, which is from here down to here. So basically our entire page. And this is just something I've seen show up as a problem at times. We'll see one of the places that it could happen today with when we get to gradients. But I'm going to say the minimum height of that is 100%. Because if the browser thinks it only needs like this much space, it'll only use that much space. And maybe you have a dark green background, and the browser thinks it only needs an inch of the screen space to show everything. It's going to have everything below that inch as just bright white blank space. So minimum height of just saying that, basically telling the computer always use the whole screen, because the browsers won't. They will just use part of the screen if it thinks it'll fit. I think it's really, really annoying if you have a dark background, because the part it doesn't use will be bright white then. I also like to set a default font size. So all of the children of the HTML element, which is all of our tags, all of our elements, will inherit that initial font size. I always like to do those two things. One of them is just because the computer will, I consider it an error. It's technically not an error. Feels like it to me whenever it happens. But always use the full page, and then this is just the default size to make sure that make the math easier when we start setting sizes on our fonts and stuff. Let me choose one of these paragraphs. Maybe this first one. Class equals first. That way we can identify that paragraph separately. Dot first. We saw the selectors last week. We can ask for a font family. And there should be several on your computer already, on every computer, right? For example, if we want something sans serif, I just looked in the background and I believe that, I think that's Times New Roman. It's something with serif. That's the serifs are the little flags on the at the end of the letters. Make it look a little bit nicer. Like here on this M, actually, point at the bigger one, the little decorations at the end of the lines make it look a little bit nicer. And sans serif is without that, so maybe if we want something sans serif, we say use Arial font or Brony. Nope. Brony, or there's a long list of them. Or when we get to the end, we can just say if none of those are available, the sans serif. So your book shows that. I'm getting ready to change that here pretty quick. So like make the first paragraph something that is sans serif. And since we have multiple files, make sure you hit the save all button. Save all the files and come over and reload it. Well, it didn't seem to recognize any of those. The capital letters. And actually, I think I forgot a comment. Put a comment in the list. I almost never do it this way. I was just pointing out your book's going to show this. Any comments in there? Doesn't seem to be changing it. And I'm not sure why it's not changing. View page source.
Are you only supposed to put one thing in there, maybe?
This is the way you can do multiple things. I almost never do it. There's probably a typo in there somewhere, maybe. I don't really know how to spell the names of those fonts, and I'm getting ready to show a better way. This is the one in the textbook. I clearly made a typo, but you can do several. You can do a list of fonts if they're installed.
And how's it know which one to use then?
It will go through the list. It'll try to use this one. If that's not there, it'll go to this one.
Okay.
And that's why we want to have the fallback at the end and say whether we want to use the serif or sans serif font. There's a better way to do that though. So your textbook shows that one. I'm pretty sure I spelled one of these wrong. Is Arial the font spelled with an E? Let's see if it does that. Nope.
Is it just that it's defaulting to Arial or something?
It might not be installed on my computer, which would be a better example. Maybe none of those fonts are installed on my computer. It just got lost somewhere. I did call it that, right? Class is first. First. Oh, the font family tells us what font to use. The book shows this one. I was going to show another way because a big problem there is those fonts I'm asking for might not be installed on somebody's computer. I don't even know if those are installed on mine. I could check.
Arial looks to be ARIAL.
Is that what I have? ARIAL. Yeah, I don't know why that. So I can look and see what's installed on mine. Arial or Verona, but maybe something else. Or Bell.
Looks like you have Arial in there.
Yeah.
Is that just what, like I said, is that just what it's defaulting to showing Arial first, and then that's you don't see
Oh, there it goes. So it must have been that second one that was misspelled. So that notice that whole line crashed. I can see another font that's installed here, maybe. Corbel. That's a nice sans serif font. So I can say Corbel. then I'll put sans serif, so that, like, if it's not installed, then try to do that. Oh. I almost never do it this way. I can't remember if I need commas or not. So probably not. Well, the book has this, unless I'm spelling serif wrong. These go I know are, oh, wait. Okay, sorry, I have no idea why I put quote marks around that. Times New Roman would need quote marks because it has a space. So then we'd want a comma or a space and then a different one that's surrounded in quote marks, not all at the same time. Sorry, I did that for some reason. At most we would want like this. So the quote marks around each name and then comma to separate it. But it pulls the first one and then just kind of walks out.
So you only need the quotation marks if it's something like Times New Roman, it's got space.
It has a space.
Yeah.
In quotes.
Everything else is just whatever.
Yes. And since this is a software development class, since y'all are heading down some sort of programming pathway, if you usually put spaces in names, you might want to try to start working on breaking that habit. Spaces cause problems. And it's a big workaround to do that. So all of these could leave off, but how do we know the end user has an Arial font installed? Or a Corbellium font installed? Or really, the computer's customizable, right? Maybe this person just, our end user just really dislikes the sans serif fonts. And they're like, no, a computer can make it look better. I need little decorations on it. So they just went through and deleted all of their sans serif fonts. Then that line's not going to show at all, right? We don't know what they have. So a better method that the book doesn't show is to probably include our own font with this. When we make a web page, we're probably going to have including images, logos, maybe some audio and video files. So there's a lot of resources we'll be including. We might as well just include our own font. And that way we know for certain that that it is available. There's lots of them out there. I've been using this one for years, 1001fonts.com. And they had 1001 fonts 15 years ago. It's way more than 1,000 now.
It looks like 31,780.
Yeah, a lot of fonts. So there's a lot to choose from. Way more than just what comes installed on a computer. And then you get into the whole Windows Apple difference, because even though the ISO International Standard Organizations did try to standardize fonts, Apple decided to do their own thing.
As usual.
And yeah, and you actually, their fonts are not free, which is another problem. But if you find free fonts, you can include them or pay stuff. There's lots of them on here. Copyright becomes an issue though. These are all free that we can use. So one that I know is on here. The Perry Hodder font.
All of them are guaranteed.
Yeah, because there's not any copyrighted movies or books called Perry Hodder.
Well, I mean, just 1,001 just guaranteed are all.
I'll show that here in a second. But yeah, you can go ahead and use it. There are some proprietary ones on here, but another thing about this site is in order to upload a font to this site, they require you have a README. So you will have the documentation of who to pay if it's not a free one, and the criteria. But things like this, so like if it's a movie font, you can just about guarantee it's on here, but there might be some little discrepancies in how something to get around copyright infringement. So I'll download this. I know there's a Godfather one that is just called Godfather directly, which is still still copyrighted information, still a copyrighted name and stuff, but it's not Disney that would be coming after somebody. So you can search for movie fonts, things like that. There's these different filters. Right, here's all the little tags that came up for this one. Tons and tons of tags to flip through and find filters. I'll just go ahead and download Godfather font. That's a good one for the example. And if we go to where those are downloaded and unzip the files.
I think you broke 1,001 fonts with your download because you did download and all of a sudden mine stopped responding.
Oh, that's weird. This site's been around for years.
I know it's a coincidence, but that's hilarious. The second you hit download, I was like, why did mine suddenly stop working?
So and inside they require everybody to put a README on there. So if we check the README, skip down to the English part of the README. This guy just wants he just wants recognition. If you like this font, just put an acknowledgement that links to his website. So artist, yeah, he just wants credit for the work, and he accepts donations, but he does not. If you don't link to the page, send him money. So you want to make sure and check the READMEs every time. But they are required on that site. That's the reason I often go to that one. Then there's often a JPEG that shows what they look like. I'm just opening that with photos. They don't all have JPEGs in them. Some of them do, just for an example. Very decorative. But here's the actual font file. Yeah, double click on it, and here's our button to install the font here in our system. A sample of what it looks like in different sizes. That you will have in every one. That's the actual file we need. And it is important to pay attention to the type. True type font. There's multiple types, but we're either going to use true type fonts or open type fonts. That'll be important here in a moment when we get to CSS. But I'm going to copy that over to the folder that has our website in it. Same thing on the other one. And the Godfather one, make sure you read the README. Trademark of a company, distributed at will, but please do not change it. And it sounds like this person's also just asking for credit for the creation of the font. Don't try to tell somebody you made the font. You did their work. That's standard for art, right? And we just need the true type, the TTF file. I'm going to copy that over to the project. It's a much better way, because then we know exactly what font it is, and we don't have to worry about whether or not the user has it installed. We'll just send them the resource for it. So to do that, we have to tell the CSS how to find it. Because these down here would be on the system. I'm going to put my cursor in that line and push Control Splash and comment out that line. That works on most IDEs. Your comment things out might be a little bit different, but you can usually see the hotkey under the edit menu somewhere. Comment, Control Splash, Control Shift Slash here on this text editor, but Control Slash is trying to become the standard. We see that more often than something else. And I'm gonna put a different font here, so, I'm gonna set up this CSS property, and our selector starts with an ampersand, or that @ sign. So at font face, and we need to create the font face. Two things we need. So the font family, right, because that's the property we're gonna use. We're gonna use this as a value in. What font family is this? So I'll just call it Perry Hodder. I'll follow that name. I like using that one because, yeah, an example of copyright, to get around copyright stuff for things like academia and stuff where it might be iffy in a classroom. The slightest change makes a difference. If there's any musicians, you've probably seen that with chord charts and lyrics online. There always has to be at least one word wrong in those lyrics because otherwise it would be copyright infringement. But usually it's an easy to spot one. And then we need to tell it where this can be found. I'm suddenly drawing a blank on the property. Might have to look this up. This happens with coding, right? We learn more and more and more, got a bunch of stuff shoved in our brain, and we might not always remember what it is. But y'all know how to look stuff up, right? Font family and CSS should be right near the top. Those two official ones are probably that. Look at this. At font family and CSS. And this has the same thing as the book has. No.
On my thing, when I started doing font face, it popped up a built thing. It did font family, then source URL parentheses.
Source. That is the one. Yeah. I just wanted to look it up. And the URL is a little bit different. So the source attribute of that.
SRC, sorry.
Oh, it's just SRC?
I read it as source, sorry.
So the source, where do we find it at? And we have the uniform resource locator. Right, that URL, we can find things anywhere in the world, no matter what machine they're on. This is a little bit different. It is standard all across programming languages. Just about all of our languages, if we put in an address, whether it's a local file address, an internet address, something, it goes in as a string with quotation marks, but not in CSS. CSS is the exception to that. We put in the address without quotation marks. So it's just right here in the same spot. So Perry Hodder, and it's a .tdf file. You might have to open properties or something to see the file extension. No, that's not what I was looking for. Open properties or view info, and make sure you have the extension like always. But we'll talk about addressing soon, but I already forgot what that was. Looks like it's in Pascal case. That's the words jammed together, first letters capitalized. So we want to look at the Perry Hodder .tdf file. And then when we get down here, we can set that font family attribute to whatever I called it up here. Whoops. I didn't mean to collapse everything. The name that we gave to it. So look at that Perry Hodder. And then whenever we post that website on our server, we'll just include that TTF file So that it gets transmitted with all the other files we created, and we don't have to worry about whether or not they have that font. Same thing for Godfather, we'll do another one. The reason I did two is to show that it's not a comma separated list. We create a new font base for each one. So font family is Godfather.
So you had all your like fonts in a subfolder in there. Would it be like?
Subfolder / font. We were talking about addresses. Yeah, we can put it anywhere on the internet, access it. So, because it's a uniform resource locator. Everything in our world has to have some sort of unique identifier. Every digital thing in our world has a unique identifier. Some of them are a little harder to get to than others. Right? A most extreme example, we might have to put in a particular MAC address. Like this file is on this particular computer somewhere in the world. Probably then an IP address so that we can find that computer in the world. But yeah, there's the URL, whatever you need to have the URL point to it.
I hope that computer's always on.
Yep. And then the other one is the Godfather -V2. And obviously at this point, if you wanted to, you could rename it. I'm just gonna keep that same name. Actually, I'm just gonna copy that name. That's probably easiest. I'll click here, like I was gonna rename it. If you wanted to rename it something simpler because you don't have version 1 in your in this project or anything, you do that, and then that one's also a TTF file. Those are the two I always grab for examples. That's how I knew they were TTF files. But you might have to look up the file extension. Probably no surprises there. That's something everybody, I assume, has seen before. And then we could do the header in that. So like the H1 gets font family Godfather. So that, and it gives us I think that's a much better way to do the fonts than what the textbook shows. This, if you do that just do a list of them, like we saw at first, you're at risk of the user not having that font on their computer. Can adjust some sizes here. Actually, it's probably time for a break, then we'll get into sizes. Probably won't get through everything I put on that list earlier, right? Back to that planning thing. That's the plan. That doesn't mean we're going to get through everything today. Some of this is going to stretch over into Wednesday. Anybody have any questions about fonts before we take a break? Oh, and then yeah, this list thing would also work with the fonts you bring in yourself. Okay, I don't have any questions. Does 10 minutes sound good, everybody? It's a little after 2, so get back at about 2:15, and then we'll take 45 minutes, and then they're around 3 is when I'm hoping to wrap up, because we'll see a bunch of things that you'll want to kind of play around with and get practice in get some random practice with soon, so you can start building your websites. Or maybe a good time to put the project proposal together if you want to do that. But for now, let's take 10, and my laptop says 2:05, so we'll get back to it at 2:50. See y'all in just a moment.